On this show, guys, Tim Hasselbeck was saying he thought it wasn't really a competition and that Tua was kind of a placeholder until Penix was healthy. Lewis, who do you think should have the leg up in this competition, especially considering the offense that Stefanski wants to run?
Yeah, I couldn't, and I love my guy Tim Hasselbeck, but I couldn't disagree more. I don't think Tua is being brought there to hold the. Why would he?
So too.
Yeah, I mean, why would he be a placeholder for Michael Penix? I mean, what has Michael Penix done to where anyone should be brought in to hold a place for him as if he was like this is his job? I just don't look at it that way. I think when you that graphic that was just up on the screen, you know, that kind of leads me right into what Kevin Stefanski's most impressive observation of Tua has been so far, which has been his accuracy. And, you know, what? Anytime you talk to any quarterback coach, and this is kind of common knowledge, I'm not breaking news here, the number one things that quarterback whisperers, quarterback coaches, head coaches, offensive coordinators want out of their quarterback is accuracy and great decision making. Now, you can bang on Tua for, you know, some of his decision making in the past for a number of different reasons, but when you think about how Kevin wants to run this offense with a big emphasis on the play-action passing game, with a big emphasis on getting that ball to his all-world running back that he has on that roster already, that's going to be something that's just going to do nothing but help Tua. And I think Tua kind of is tailor-made for this offense. I expect him, I'm putting my money on him winning this job. If he can stay healthy, all things being equal, I think he's the better fit for the offense that Kevin ideally would like to run.
Let me say this, and J.J. McCarthy going to catch some strays while I'm at it. Anytime they bring in the caliber of quarterback, like a Kyler Murray, like a Tua Tagovailoa, they're bringing that guy in to play. They're not bringing them in to hold places. They're not bringing them in to talk in front of the team. They're not bringing them in to rally morale. They're bringing those caliber of quarterbacks in because the guy that's there hasn't been good enough. And Michael Penix, you can say it's because of the injuries. That may be so. He wasn't good enough. Kyler Murray and J.J. McCarthy, you can say J.J. McCarthy, it was because of the injuries. Not good enough. When you have Tua and you have Kyler Murray, I would be shocked, Laura and Lewis, if those two guys are not the starting quarterbacks day one for those respective teams.
On this show, guys, Tim Hasselbeck was all right. Let's go, baby. I made that, you know, 'cause Lauren brought up that thing about, you know, Tim and all that. And I made that video, right? And, you know, and I said like, okay, this is good because this is like a clear defined Tim is saying Penix. And so, that was, you know, the whole thing. I was like, let's just discuss this 'cause I've always talked about Tua, you know, Penix, Tua, Penix, which is it? And then I saw on, you know, a random post that Lewis, I didn't watch the video, but I saw, you know, like in the thumbnail that he was saying Tua is going to be the starter and all of that. And I was like, oh, I definitely want to make this clip for the Atlanta Falcons. But I was like in my mind like, how you know, like how do I want to approach this since I just made the Penix video. So, this was such an awesome take and I'm, you know, excited to break it down. But before I jump into it, Atlanta Falcons fans, please do not forget to subscribe and watch the full length of the video. When you guys do that, views go through the roof, subscribers go through the roof. And it's not about chasing views, it's not about chasing subscribers. It's about being able to create Atlanta Falcons content that people genuinely want to watch and discuss. So, we keep having the most unbiased, grounded, honest conversations about the Falcons. It makes such a huge difference to watch the full length of the video, and I would really appreciate it. You guys certainly really do rise to the occasion a lot, and I'm just so genuinely appreciative. So, yeah. Yeah, I've been thinking about this and to like the best way to approach this. And it's funny because I talked about just the messiness of this and kind of how frustrating it can be and how I said, listen, you know, if you're an Atlanta fan like I don't blame you for being frustrated or annoyed because like that's the appropriate response. That's the appropriate reaction. And someone in the Falcons, you know, Falcons fan in the comments section said like, oh, you're really becoming a you know, Falcons fan now, because you're starting to understand like the pain and the frustration of being a Falcons fan. And I thought that was really funny, and pretty spot on. One of my crash outs a couple years ago was when, they didn't make the playoffs and they brought in Penix too late, and I just was like, this was so ridiculous with how the season unfolded, and I went on and on and on, about it. So, and it's funny because I went on a whole rant about teams and fan bases showing up. I made an Eagles video the other day, showing how like a fan base like the Eagles really, even if they lose, like they're still all over the place. They're still wanting to interact and talk and break things down. And I said like not all teams are like that. And I used some examples. And it's funny because in hindsight, like I said, a couple years ago when the Falcons got eliminated from the playoffs and all that, I made a video and like again, you guys all showed up for it. So like clearly there's some similarities there of people who just, love football and win or lose. Unfortunately, the Falcons have a lot of experience losing. So, and you're trying to change that, right? And that's why this conversation matters so much, right? To a Penix to Fanski, right? Bijan Robinson. It's like where are we? How do we get this? And Lewis is the one that said it. And this is the quote that I talk about, I bring up in almost every Falcons video because I loved it so much, right? Trying to become relevant again, right? Just mattering in the NFL. And that's what Lewis mapped out when they beat the Bills. And yet, like they weren't able to stick that landing. And that's why something like this matters so much. So much. Like it's also pretty funny that he brought up the Vikings because I kind of have been not calling out the Vikings, but just trying to add like further context in terms of like the Vikings aren't trying to become relevant. The Vikings feel that they had this Super Bowl window, this elite offensive coach, this elite defensive coach with an elite defense, and Jefferson and all this they feel like, man, they were a game away from having the 1 seed with Sam Darnold. Right? Like they felt like, we are in a true Super Bowl window. Like they're not just trying to be relevant. If Kyler Murray gets the starting job and they just get to the playoffs and lose, that's not a victory. That's not, alright, hey, we did pretty good. That's not what it is. That's not what the expectations are in Minnesota. I look at the Atlanta where I'm like, just be relevant. Just be competitive. Just make me actually feel it's week 14 and hey, we can actually win the division, get into the playoffs, at least the wild card. We could win a playoff game. Right? Like just be competent. Just be competitive. That's it. I think that's for me personally all I'm looking for. That's all I'm looking for. And so then that, to a degree, does change a little bit about the conversation of who do you want as quarterback. Who do you think would be their best? It's all about what you're trying to achieve. I think it's also and to hear them kind of discuss this a little bit about accuracy and making things easier for the quarterback. Like there's a lot of great pieces here. That's what I talked about a lot, like that if you just get average competent quarterback play, there's a lot of firepower here. Kirk Cousins showed that. Kirk Cousins proved that. You have a lot of firepower here. And like that's what's so fascinating. That's what makes it so hard. I genuinely from the bottom of my heart like these are the types of takes that you get from me. Like I'm just so honest I can't just decide on one quarterback and then just run with it. I just can't. I'm not going to do that. Sometimes there's not a clear defined take. Sometimes being on the fence is the appropriate response. I genuinely see value in both. I do think if you're thinking more long-term, then you're looking at Penix. If you're thinking more short-term and you're thinking just relevancy, competitiveness, then Tua becomes the safer play. And so like that's why it's actually really interesting that Booger brought that up about, Kyler and cause it's like, well, I see them trying to achieve different things. And also still similar words as like, well, ceiling, floor, ceiling, floor, ceiling, floor. And so I do agree, and this is what I think is also really interesting because Tim and Lewis even though you know football so well, you played football this side, like you're going to have differing opinions. You can have differing opinions. That's why I think some of the funniest comments that I get and always the most absurd comments that I can get is when people say like, oh, you know, you're wrong. Like the fact of the matter is that like there's this one true view or this one true opinion. That if you don't have you're wrong. And it's like, here we have like people who know more about football than we will, who've actually been playing at the NFL level, and they disagree. And like that's the beauty of sports. That's the beauty of sports talk. There's a billion opinions out there. And even if you have a different opinion, even if you just end up being wrong, it doesn't automatically mean that you know nothing about ball or, you know, anything like that. It's just the way it works. So I just even that contrast I found really, really interesting. But I do disagree with Tim in terms of like, oh, Tua is just a placeholder. Like it's so tricky. Because right, if you had full confidence in Penix, but you were concerned about his health. Like, that's the problem too with Kyler, or excuse me, yeah, with Kyler and JJ. When you start to incorporate like injury issues as well, like let's say Penix has had a rocky season, but he was fully healthy and played the full season. Do you bring in a Tua still? Or are you kind of like, well, now we're just going to get another, you know, backup quarterback, you know, a quarterback that we're a little bit more comfortable just being like a true backup? Or is Tua so cheap where you're like, well, you know, we got to take this? I think coaches are always interested in that idea of like, oh wow, like this guy obviously has talent, he obviously has potential, he's shown the ability to like actually do competent things on a football field. It's hard to just give that up no matter the situation. It's hard to just like automatically pass on that no matter how you feel about your quarterback. But let alone now you're also adding in the injuries and all that. So it's like it is an interesting conundrum to try to reflect on. And that's why it's hard to reach the conclusion how this coaching staff feels about both these quarterbacks and what the actual long-term plan is. You say always Stefanski really likes accuracy and this and that, which is right, of course, everyone's going to love accuracy. But, like in his heart of all hearts, does Stefanski really think that Tua is going to be his quarterback for the next 10 years? Ideally, Stefanski's going to be the coach for the next like 40 years of the Atlanta Falcons, right? That's what he's hoping. He's like, I'm hoping I stay with the Falcons for the rest of the time and then I retire with the Falcons and we win multiple Super Bowls. Does he think that that's Tua? Does he think that there's even that potential for Tua? And if there's the answer is no, and now you go to Penix and you say, well, there's a question mark. I don't know. I haven't seen enough yet. Well, that kind of gives an answer right there where it's just like, well, it's a mystery box. It's a mystery door with Penix. And if I already know that my cap is no with Tua, that already then starts to have me be a little bit more interested in Penix. But, if you're already reaching the conclusion, nah, Penix was overdraft. This is not the guy. You know, listen, can he do a little bit of this and a little bit of that? For sure, but you know, not quite going to work out that way. Then, if you're a Stefanski, you're like, well, now I'm going to go with Tua because he's a competent, accurate, experienced veteran quarterback. I can build an offense a lot more smoothly. He's not my long-term play whatsoever, but neither is Penix. I just need some competency. I need to prove to the Atlanta Falcons that I'm the man for the job, that I'm the coach of the future for the next 20, 30, 40 years. Like, you know, I got to make sure that I get Kyle happy and London happy and Bijan happy. I got to take some pressure off this defense. Like, I owe it to the team. I'm not here to play any games. I'm not here to do any song and dance. I'm not here to prove that Penix should be a quarterback. I just got to get some competency under my belt immediately. Immediately. Also, the moment if you're a new coach, the moment you experience competency, you experience some wins, you start to get a deeper level of trust from the players, let alone the franchise as a whole, the coaching staff, the management, the and ties, all of that. So, it's like it is also a very, very, very different situation. That's why when I was talking about the Minnesota Vikings as well, I was just like thinking about it where, 'cause some people are like, oh, maybe Kevin O'Connell's on the OT seat, this, that. I don't think he should be, but if I'm the GM, if I'm the owner, I'm going right up to him and I'm saying, buddy, you are our coach for the next 5, for an extended period of time. No matter what happens this year, we're not firing you. So, do not make decisions based on short term. Do not make decisions based on I got to keep my job. Make the right football move. You have the runway. Do not make decisions based on you having to prove yourself or this or that. Things got a little messy. Obviously, the Sam Darnold was a bit of a mistake. I get it. I got it. You're my guy. Make decisions on what's best for the team right now and what we need to do moving forward. That's it. Okay. You're not hanging on by a thread. There you go. But it's just you're in a different situation, a different coach. This is a new coach with a new team. Obviously, he has a track record and experience and obviously, the Falcons trust him. That's why they hired him. But still, it's different. His reputation isn't cemented in the NFL and it's certainly not cemented with the Atlanta Falcons. So, Stefanski's not going to really feel super comfortable either taking big chances and big swings. And it's why Brian Daboll chose Russ to be the starting quarterback. His job was hanging on by a thread. And he in preseason, in camp, mini camp, all the workouts and whatnot, Russ is going to be ahead because he's a seasoned veteran. And so, if you're a coach and you're like, my job is hanging on by a line, which obviously proved to be true since he got fired, you're like, I'm going with the vet. I'm going with the guy who I know that I can have a real conversation with. I know I'm going with the guy who is maybe more accurate, who's more composed, who, at least when I'm in the meeting having a conversation with him, he understands what I'm saying. I don't have to teach him every single thing. It's just you see that all the time. You see that all the time. Saw that with Mike Tomlin, obviously, with Russ, as well, over Justin Fields. You see it all the time. Russ is just not the common denominator. Saw it with Shane Steichen, going with Daniel Jones, right? It's just you if you're a coach and you're trying to run a team, it's so hard to overlook competency, experience, veteranship, all of that stuff. So, it's just it's also I wonder this season the conversations that they have as Stefanski where they go, yeah, we know this is a little bit of a mess. Yeah, we know you didn't pick Penix and Tua is a very specific quarterback, right, with a very specific history. I just wonder what that conversation is as well. I know Stefanski's going to feel that pressure to want to immediately he's not going to want to come into the season and be like, yeah, this team's a little bit of a mess and that's why we lost so many games. But, don't worry, the future's going to be better. He wants to be able to install that competency immediately. Immediately. And that's why I just wonder what management goes to him where they're just yeah, we know it's going to be a bit of a mess. You have plenty of room to fail. We understand. This is a weirder situation. This is a harder situation to have to work through. So, just do what's best. Make the right decisions for the team grounded, don't feel the pressure that you have to, get this team to a Super Bowl right now. And so, 'cause Brian Daboll was going into a very specific situation not Brian Daboll, excuse me. Mike Vrabel was going into a very specific situation with the Patriots as a brand new young quarterback that people felt really high on, really great, but that team, it's you had that. You had, Demico going, right? Like, it's just like, you kind of had a different type of marriage in some of these other situations. It's not quite the situation that I feel as though Stefanski has entered into with this. Just the fact of that we keep looking at both these quarterbacks of like, can either of these quarterbacks even stay healthy? Right? That's the biggest question mark about these quarterbacks. Can they stay healthy? Can they stay healthy? Can they stay healthy? And it's like, I don't know. I hope so, but I don't know. So, yeah, man. If you were confused by that take, so am I, 'cause it's a mess. It is. I said that months ago. I was like, you got to just admit that this is a messy situation for the Atlanta Falcons, because it is. Because it is. I mean, Michael Penix is technically not even fully cleared yet. Right? He's not even fully cleared yet. And now the guy who legitimately cannot stay healthy and is a concussion away from potentially needing to retire from the NFL, we're out here saying, I think it's his job, you know. And he can run this, and even Lewis is like, if he can stay healthy. And it's just like, the problem is with health with Tua is like, is he going to have to retire? Not like, oh, he gets banged up. It's like, no, is he going to get concussed and we're all going to be holding our breath and just praying that this guy just retires so he can, you know, live a happy and functional life? Like, what are we doing here? And Penix just can't keep his ACL intact. So, it's just like, it's messy, man. Messy with a brand new coach. 'Cause that was the other thing that I meant to say that I kind of got distracted, is that if Stefanski wasn't a brand new coach, and he's been with the Falcons, and he's got the trust, he's got the experience, he's, you know, that he's not going to lose the locker room, he doesn't have to prove to anyone that he's the guy or anything like that, again, Stefanski would operate from a different place. He would operate from a different place and potentially make it doesn't mean that the decision would be different, but it would potentially lead to a different decision. So, again, that's where to me that all starts to contribute to the messiness of it all. So, I don't know. And the fan base seems split, but the fan base seems my experience written in the comments and all that seems more geared towards Penix because again, I think Penix still represents that mystery box, door number 2. What's behind door number 2? It could genuinely be greatness. It could be awesome. It could be the quarterback of your future where most people seemingly already have their mind made up about Tua and no one's confident that Tua is just not going to get another concussion moving forward. Like no one thinks like, oh, of course this guy's just going to he's just not going to get hit really hard as the quarterback over the next 5 to 6 years and he's not going to get knocked out of another game. Like that would who sees that? Nobody. So, but those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Atlanta Falcons, Tua or Penix? Tua or Penix? Tua or Penix? I'd love for you guys when you leave comments just like in the very beginning, just write Tua or Penix. Tua or Penix. Like that's who you're voting for and then leave the rest of your comment and I can just kind of look at it to see, but let me know our thoughts. I read every single comment. Whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get into some discussions. Let's get into some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. Please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up as it really does help visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.